everyone, and welcome back to another Storytime video. And today, I'm going to talk about the time that I badly hurt my wrist. This required a cast and everything, so I'm not trying to undersell it here. If the wrist if the wrist didn't have to be put into a cast, then I wouldn't mention it in that way that I badly hurt my wrist. But I don't think I'm over exaggerating when I say that, and I provide that as evidence that I'm not. So I distinctly remember this was very, very close to the end of the school year, like mid to late May, right before Memorial Day. It must have been. I mean, it had to have been, but because I remember that I was going to go on a very early June trip to London, and so I was playing out on the playground right before we were supposed to leave, and at this point in time, I wore a watch on my left wrist. And this matters because ever since this point, except for I think it was like spring of my freshman year of high school, I have not worn a wristwatch since this point. I think it is for this reason, but I was running on the playground and I tripped and fell, and I fell right on my wrist and right on the watch. Now, it was a very cheap watch since I was just 12 years old in the 6th grade. And so, I mean, it wasn't anything that looked nice like the watch that I wore in my freshman year of high school. But, so I remember just being in immense pain. Now, this is not the worst pain that I've ever felt in my life, but, well, physical pain. But this ranks among, like, the top 2 or 3 times that I have felt physical pain. And I don't really remember going to the doctors, but I remember my mom had to pick me up, even though I think this was, like, at the end of the school day. It was not field day, because I remember missing out on field day while I was in London. But, so this was just a normal school day. I think this was, of course, this was in the afternoon. I think this year, they had at the private school, well, it seemed like my last few years of going to the private school, it seemed like the structure throughout the day would be different. What I mean by that is that, you know, they had it one year where they had recess right before lunch one year. Now, this was not the year, I don't think. I think they did it the year after or the year before. But, of course, you know, usually when you have a school that, you know, like an elementary school that does recess, you would usually have lunch, and then recess so that kids can kind of burn off the energy that they had and, all that. 1 year and 1 year only, they did it such that they had recess before lunch. That's another story time for another day, but that's not for today. But yeah, so I badly hurt my wrist, and so I had to get a cast, and then I had to have one of those splints that you wear after, like, toward the end of the London trip. But man, I just couldn't move my wrist. I just couldn't move it at all. And thankfully, I made a full recovery. Like later on that summer, I was able to make a full recovery, so it wasn't a big deal. But yeah, that's a time in which I felt a lot of physical pain. It's either this or another time I haven't talked about yet, which I probably might eventually, because that was part of my childhood, actually. Well, I was younger when this one particular thing happened, and yes, well, I was actually in a sling, for some of the London trip. So not just a cast, but a sling, actually. And I remember that because, I was big with the digital camera back then, and no, I do not mean a phone, Gen Z or Gen Alpha. I do not mean a phone. I mean an actual camera that used a battery and an SD card and film, depending on how old it is. Every time I think of that stuff, I'm like, God, I feel old. But then I'm like, well, I'm not actually that old. It's just that, the newer generations just don't know about that stuff. But yeah, so there were plenty of pictures where it's like, oh, well, there I am in a sling, or my arm's in a sling, and all this other stuff. I mean, the time where I was younger, my arm was in a cast, and then the most painful time, or the most painful thing I've experienced, at least physically, I've talked about like 3 or 4 separate times on this channel, is the fire hydrant of doom. And I'm not even going to give a short explanation to it, because I've covered it to death at this point, to where I don't even know if I want to talk about it again for a long time. Maybe eventually for this channel, but not now. Not for a long time. Even though it is one of my favorite stories that I've ever told, if not my favorite story that I've ever told. Like I've covered that thing to death, so much so that I've told it, retold it, told what happened before that, leading up to that, and I think I've talked about the greater aftermath after that. And I think I might have retold telling what led up to that as well. So I've covered it 3 or 4 times. But anyway, yeah, so that was the time where I badly hurt my wrist. It was just kind of a freak thing where I kind of fell and slid on the grass, and there's no pain, and there wasn't even any pain in mid to late June or July, or of that year. But yeah, it's a time where I can look back and go, yeah, that's been a time where I've been hurt. And for the record, no, I have not broken any bones. I bet you with this experience, and, well, I don't think I broke my wrist. I don't remember the doctor saying that I broke my wrist. So I don't think I did. But it was healed in like a couple weeks, though. But yeah. But yeah, I haven't broken a phone, but this case, and then the other case that I haven't brought up, yeah, those were the closest. I mean, yeah, the fire hydrant of doom was really painful, but if you've heard me talk about that, then you would know that there weren't really any bones to break. There weren't really any bones to break. And I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to expand on it. Partly because I've done it to death already, but also because this is not the video for that. But yeah, so that will do it for this storytime video today. And so yes, guys, I do believe that will do it for this storytime video and select storytime video, which will be a special storytime video, as a matter of fact, with face cam and everything. I will see you all later. Goodbye, guys! Thank you all for watching.